Hi and welcome to the podcast Conscious Parenting UK. It's just myself, Fiona NG, here today, and I'm bringing you an episode where I talk to you about something that is really close to my heart, and that is why conscious parenting is so important. It's that important, in fact, I've created a whole career around it, and that's why today I'm a conscious parenting coach. I'm sure if you're listening, you've probably got a little bit of an understanding of what conscious parenting is. My interpretation of conscious parenting is where we are self-aware, where we self-reflect, and where we parent our child based on their unique needs, their unique nervous system, and that we allow them to teach us on how they want to be parented. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, but it's looking at the child that's in front of us and really seeing them, really hearing them, and respecting them, consciously communicating with them. And often it's very different to the way that we were raised, and for many of us we weren't consciously parented. So in today's episode I am going to talk about the reasons why conscious parenting is so important to me. Number one is, if we can consciously parent, we can prevent children from being emotionally neglected. Childhood emotional neglect is a term that Dr. Johnny Webb termed, and I am a product of childhood emotional neglect. So I've just put that out there right away, and that is one big reason why I am so passionate about spreading the word of conscious parenting, helping parents be conscious parents, and raising my children in that way. I know for myself as a child, I had a very lonely childhood. I lived inside my head. I had a rich inner life, and I was seen but not heard. My opinions didn't matter. My thoughts didn't matter. My parents didn't actually really know who I was because they didn't take the time to get to know who I was. And this isn't to blame my parents. Obviously, they did the best that they could with the awareness that they had. However, it doesn't devalue my experience as a child and how being emotionally neglected led to a lot of problems in life. And when we're products of childhood emotional neglect, we don't know how to feel our feelings, we don't know how to regulate our feelings, we don't know how to express our feelings. And then what often happens is we attract relationships that mirror exactly that. We go into relationships that are very familiar from childhood, where we might be seen but not heard, where we might have a surface relationship but we don't really connect below the surface. And we don't know how to talk properly and engage with our partners. We don't know how to express our feelings to them. So we might find ourselves in relationships where, we might be married, we have long-term partners, but we cannot actually go to them in our most vulnerable moments. Because when we were kids, we learned that vulnerable moments were to be spent in our bedroom all by ourselves, sitting with big feelings that nobody helped us with. So one of the main reasons why I'm so passionate about conscious parenting is because I don't want to raise kids who are emotionally neglected like me. And number two, one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about conscious parenting, and it kind of ties in with number one, is I've got two kids, and selfishly I'm raising them in a certain way, and I want them to meet other kids that are raised that way. Because if there's more children who are raised by conscious parents, then my kids are going to meet people, have relationships, have friendships with people who can see and hear them, who can validate them, who can hold space for them, who can appreciate them for their authentic selves. And they can have some really deep connective relationships, which again, many of us don't always experience. I often say to my clients, if as kids we were raised with conscious parenting and our parents were able to listen to us and they were able to see us and to hear us and to validate us, then we wouldn't need to sit in therapy, because we would all have the skills of a therapist. We'd have skills where we could really hold space for someone, where we could really listen to them. So in saying that, I want my kids to be around other kids who can really see and hear them, and I want them to go through life and have a positive experience in their relationships. I'm not naive. I'm sure there'll be a lot of hiccups along the way, but if I can consciously parent them, then that actually sets a standard for what they want. It sets a standard of their expectations of, actually, I come from a household where I'm really valued, I'm really respected, I'm really seen. So they're going to really know when they encounter someone who can't give them that. And the third reason why I'm so passionate about conscious parenting is because I spent a good chunk of my life unconscious. And when you're unconscious, what do you breed? More unconsciousness. I lived a very typical life where I was a child and spent a lot of time on my own. Then when I became a teenager, I was so used to trading my authenticity for attachment that I did everything I could to fit in at school. I changed myself. I wasn't empowered in being who I really was. So I moved in circles where people were underage drinking, and then that became a bit of a tool for me just to disconnect and numb out even more than I already was as a child. And then I went to university. I had a very wild life. I was drinking heavily. I got involved in drugs, and I can't remember a lot of them 3 years that I spent at university. And I do believe that that does correlate to the way that I was raised, because I wasn't equipped with skills, life skills that I needed to go into them environments where I was living away from home, and I was a hot mess. I didn't know how to handle my feelings. I didn't know how to handle my emotions. I didn't know how to deal with anxieties, and I barely scraped through my degree. So I'm so passionate about parents becoming conscious, so then their children don't spend a lifetime unconscious and they don't have the sort of experiences that I had. I became more and more conscious in my early 20s, and the catalyst for becoming really conscious was actually having my first daughter in 2015. Being pregnant and then having her, something just shifted inside of me. And I think having a daughter as well, I was just like, you know what? I need to change. I need to wake up. And yeah, they really were the mirrors when I had my two daughters. And it just made me reevaluate life, and I looked more deeply at things, and I spent a lot of time in self-reflection. I learned to tune into my intuition more, and yeah, I became really, really conscious, and my life couldn't be any different to what it was over a decade ago. And, I say to friends now and to therapists I work with, sometimes I wish I could just be unconscious for a day. But, when you become conscious, you can't be unconscious, and the things that you attract into your life are more conscious, the hobbies you have, the activities you do. You don't really want to spend your days hungover and numbed out, not really being there when you experience what it's really like to be conscious. Another reason why conscious parenting is so important to me, number 4, is because I generally do believe if we change the way we parent, we change the world. And I know that sounds so cliche, but look at the state of the world. Look at people who are in positions, of power. Look at politicians. Look at the likes of Donald Trump and what he created and the destruction he created. And I'm not sure if you've ever looked into his childhood, but he was severely emotionally neglected as a child. He was in boarding school. He did not have parents who were seeing him, validating him, holding space for his feelings, helping him with his regulation. And, this is not going to go down that political route. But it does show how parenting and how our upbringings massively, massively impact us. So if more and more people could be consciously parenting, then we're going to raise less narcissists, we're going to raise less sociopaths, and we're going to have a lot less wounded adults walking around on this planet. And number 5, why conscious parenting is so important to me is because I do believe that a lot of the mental health problems that we have in this world do again draw down to the type of parenting that somebody's had. I don't think it's a coincidence that we have a rise of mental health problems, because for many of us, we were raised by the generation where everything was to be brushed under the carpet, feelings weren't to be expressed, we didn't talk about mental health, and our parents massively suppressed everything. So then when we came along, not only was a lot of their trauma passed down to us, but then we weren't equipped with the skills and the tools of how to be with our feelings and how to regulate. So then we're trying to unpick generational trauma whilst reparenting ourselves, and it's heavy. And yeah, if we didn't have parents who could really support us through things that might have been big traumas or little traumas, then it's understandable why today, as adults, as parents, as people who are living in a world that is really busy, that doesn't allow space to process traumatic events, then everything just tumbles on top of us until our body says no, which is actually a great book by Gabor Mate, Dr. Gabor Mate, who wrote When the Body Says No. And now there's more and more studies about the link between suppressed emotions, chronic illness, and what that creates. So if we want healthier people, if we want better mental health, then we really do need to be looking at how we are showing up as parents and how we can create space to heal, to get ourselves in therapy, to have mentors, have people who can guide us on our paths, and how we can almost act as preventive agents who can prevent our kids from enduring the mental health struggles that we may have. So yeah, they're just 5 reasons why conscious parenting is so important to me. I could speak about conscious parenting all day long. It's every aspect of my life, from my job as a parent coach to my relationship with my kids, to the conversations and how I show up with friends. So I just wanted to keep it short and share a little bit more about why I'm here, why this is such an important mission, and to thank you for being here listening and to being part of this change. If you like this episode, I would love if you could hit the like button, if you could leave a comment, you could subscribe, and maybe you could forward this to a few friends or your partners if it resonates with you and you think it might resonate with them.